Welcome to
Everyday Macaroni.
I'm Joy Alfred Brand.
And I'm Juliet Connell, and we're the hosts of Everyday Macaroni, the podcast.
This podcast is a look at the lighter side of life, where we talk about our adventures as a modern blended family.
So sit back, relax,
And prepare to have your funny bone tickled. Welcome back to Everyday Macaroni. This is episode number 2. And we're going to do something special for this second episode to kick things off a little bit more, since we've already talked about how this whole thing started and how the book idea and all that kind of stuff. But I'm here with my sister-in-law, Juliet.
Hello.
Hello. And we're going to talk about a special Halloween-themed selection of stories.
Yeah.
That coincide comfortably with the Everyday Macaroni theme. And just because we have a lot of stories that sort of fit into that category, literally, I think we could sit down and we could spend hours just telling stories and talking about funny stuff that's happened.
Oh, yeah.
I can think of one in particular that I find very, very funny. Can you guess what I'm thinking of?
Is that the cat surgery?
I think that is an excellent way to start. Okay. Time for sound effects and props. Cat surgery. As a Halloween-themed podcast episode, I think it's appropriate to talk about cats.
That's true.
Just because they are a popular image in the world of Halloween lore. I can't help but think about Harry Potter and what's the cat? Crookshanks, the cat's name? Anyway. So tell the story of your dad in Crookshanks and the cosmetic surgery.
The cosmetic surgery. Well, I do have to say before I start that everybody knows that every single one of our cats were always named Sylvester.
Wait, not everyone.
No, all except for one. And that cat's name was Suzuki, only because he ran across the TV screen as there was a Suzuki commercial going on. And my dad was just like, oh my gosh, that cat is as fast as one of those motorcycles. We need to name him Suzuki. So that was the one and only Suzuki, because all the rest were Sylvester. And none of them looked like Sylvester the cat on TV either. They were always gray for some reason.
Porque no Pookie.
Porque no Pookie. Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. Okay.
Yep. So Sylvester, poor Sylvester.
Which one? Sylvester number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Who knows? It was like one of them. I'm assuming that there's people out there whose parents are in their 80s now and grew up in the 70s and 80s and whatnot. And those of you who haven't have to realize that way back when, I mean, it's hard to imagine that you don't take your pets to the vet, right? I know growing up in the 80s, I mean, we took our dog to the vet, but not our
the cat. No, who cares about the cat, right? Let the cat. That cat roams around outside.
It roams around outside. Cats
it's released on its own recognizance. There's a joke in there.
Well,
Recatnessence. No. But look, that's also a money issue. And
right, it is a money issue.
Being the Dalai Lama, I have to say, I grew up pretty poor, or economically suppressed. And so the vet was something that you just did not spend money on, like tuna or blueberry pancakes.
That's right.
You did not spend money on going to the vet. You just didn't, or special dog food or anything like that.
Right.
So,
and not only that, I mean, no one neutered their animals. So
true.
Sadly,
thank you, Bob Barker.
You just didn't. I mean, cats were a dime a dozen. Everybody on the block who had a cat, if your cat died, there was already another cat to replace it like 2 seconds later, because someone had a
your
litter.
neighbor's cat.
Well, that's something else.
That's a story
too,
for
right?
another time too.
But everyone had a litter of cats, and there were always like 12 or 14 cats in the litter. Yeah, do you want one? Yeah, I'll put my name on one of those because mine just died, or my mother's sister's brother's cousin needs 2 cats because they have mice.
My brother's friend rolled over it in the car.
I know. Which is sad. I don't know. I don't know what the difference between a cat and a dog is, but back then there was. It's probably the same feeling that I get if I see a squirrel run over on the side of the road
Aw.
versus a dog run over on the side of the road.
That reminds me, I ran over a mouse the other day, and I was like, oh. I really hate
yikes.
hitting butterflies, too. So I think part of the reason cats are categorized differently, categorized, get it? I think part of the reason they're treated differently and viewed differently is because cats largely can take care of themselves for the most part.
Yeah, I think so.
Even
And
indoor cats.
Yeah. And we always had...
But dogs, no.
Well, and
Poor
that's the other
dummies.
thing. I know. They just can't help themselves, right? So we as humans have to take over everything, right? But cats, I mean, all our cats were inside cats, but...
So the cats were outdoor cats, indoor-outdoor cats. They would come
Right,
in
they
like
were
at night or something.
indoor-outdoor. Yeah, they went outside and fended for themselves all day long, and then they would come in for dinner. They'd have their breakfast.
Okay.
Tell us how their day was yesterday,
A cup of
and then they
coffee.
would go out. And you didn't really see them. They were hanging out on your porch, or they were hanging out who knows where. And then they would come in at night when they knew that they were going to eat. And they would sleep wherever, on their couch or whatever. And then they would go back outside.
And then they would eye the dog and
That
be
was
jealous.
it. I know, right? But this cat in particular, this one Sylvester, Sylvester 3, was a tomcat. To me, tomcat is an unneutered roamer, you know,
Lothario.
who also likes to get into fights and fend
Catting around.
and fend for himself. I'm sure that he was on someone's stoop somewhere, you know, somewhere singing the night away.
No, wait.
So, I mean, that's what he did, but this cat in particular...
Eating a fish skeleton off a trash can lid.
Yeah, on some sort of Tom and Jerry commercial. He came in and he had some huge, it was probably a good golf ball sized welt on his head, like right in front of one of his ears. And my dad, being what he was,
The
you
barber
know,
of Seville.
the barber of Seville, right? He loved animals. He really did. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
throughout
I've
my
actually seen that
entire
now,
life,
yes.
he's loved animals. He's always wanted to be near animals, always rescues animals.
Always will be feeding strays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he feeds strays, but never realizes the consequences. Then he's got a cat for life, you know, because he's feeding a stray. But this cat came home and he had this thing, and he looks at me and he's like, all right, Juliet, this is an infection. And if we don't fix this infection, the cat's going to die.
will die.
So how am I going to get the cat to just sit there? Meanwhile, my dad, I have you know, that he had a straight razor in his hand.
Oh, God.
Right? And he says, we need to cut that.
Literally
and then,
the barber of Seville.
Right? And he needs to extract all of the pus or whatever that is in there. He goes, because that infection will fester and the cat will definitely die. So I'm looking at him, and I must have been maybe 10. It was back when we lived in Patterson. So
a
it
young,
was
impressionable,
yeah,
sensitive little kid.
right. And I had no idea of what he had in mind. So what he did was he had my mom grab a sheet, right? And he took the sheet and he goes, okay, this is what we're going to do so that the cat doesn't scratch you.
Oh, nice.
Which is a good option, right? We're going to wrap it. So somehow, you know, he folded it and whatnot. I swear to you that that cat looked like a newborn baby as they give it to you in swaddling clothes. Okay?
So wrapped up tight.
He was wrapped up tight. So what he did is he took the cat, he grabbed it, and he put the cat's arms down. Kind of like, so the cat's laying on his back, and he puts his little arms either on his belly or on his side or whatever, like a human. And he proceeds to roll up the cat like he's in some sort of egg roll. And then he hands it to me. So now the cat is in this big wad.
And now where's your mother in all this?
Oh, my mom's gone.
Oh.
Because my mom doesn't like the sight of blood. Nothing.
Oh, so it falls to you.
And Ron,
Okay.
same
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
He was gone. It wasn't even like they were looking around the corner or anything. They were just, that was it. So.
Weenies.
I know, right? So just because I could take a little blood, I was the elected official on, you know, the official nurse on this thing. my dad takes the knife or whatever he's got, the razor, and pops the tiniest hole in this, and it practically exploded.
Oh, the original Dr. Pimple Popper.
Oh, no kidding,
gross.
Right? Yeah, when she's doing that, I'm thinking of that, right? But so he pops it open a little bit more and whatnot, and does what you do with a big, massive pimple, I guess, and cleans out the whole area. And then he was a fan of, back then, and so were a lot of parents back then, peroxide. Could kill pretty much anything. Mercurochrome.
Oh my God, the orange stuff.
Or methylate.
Methylate. Yes.
Methylate, the pink stuff, right? Methylate was the one you never wanted anywhere near you. Because methylate burned like crazy.
Like the Dickens, yeah.
Right? Mercurochrome was the darker orange rusty stuff, right? Because it had the iodine in it. And then you, of course, had the peroxide. So
the cat got the
peroxide came
antibacterial
in.
cocktail.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The thing was fuzzing and foaming and everything else. And when I think about it, I mean, the hole wasn't huge, but it's not like he had to suture it or anything. I mean, we didn't get that detailed. But once all that was done, and mind you that the cat had teeth, and the cat was not taking it lightly. All I could say was that I was good enough to know to keep my face away from this cat's mouth. Yeah, that was mine and my dad's first major surgery.
Well, what happened to the cat?
Oh, the cat healed beautifully.
Your first major surgery?
I know.
This happened more than once?
Yeah, but I don't necessarily, I wasn't necessarily having to wrap a cat to get that done.
I can't believe it happened more than once. I thought it was only the one time.
Well, there were instances where we were having to,
practicing veterinarianism without a license.
Veterinarianism, that's right.
The unauthorized practice of veterinarianism.
We just considered ourselves healers.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
The cat lived. The wound healed perfectly. Not a scar on him. There was the side effect. Unfortunately, there was a side effect. My dad must have hit a nerve or something when he poked in there, because the cat's ear flopped. Just the tip. Not the entire ear, just the tip. Flopped a little bit. So it was like a little...
So maybe broken cartilage or something like that.
It could be. I don't know.
It could have happened as
it was just a cat.
Fight. Well, yes. It's just a cat. Who cares?
It was a cat. Yeah. We fixed him. No need for any of his lives to be taken.
That's like DIY veterinary,
I know.
Let me get in there and bring your cat over here. Oh, we'll take care. You didn't neuter spay or neuter any of your own pets, did you?
No, we didn't get that far. No.
Wow.
Yeah. And to this day, you'll always hear my mom say, you should have gone into medicine. Which I was just like, yeah, okay. Involuntary nursing at the age of 10. And yeah, I went into nursing. Yeah. Just as likely as me becoming a nun, which is what I wanted to be, my profession in 3rd grade, right?
You pray so well. You should be a nun. That's funny, because my next favorite story that we have queued up to talk about today, which we've talked about before, has to do with your mother and an incident that happened where your mother's mother, mother's grandmother.
My mother's grandmother, yeah, my great-grandmother, right.
Had her final experience. So what do you remember about that story? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, no, I remember what you're talking about. Now, that one, of course, was before my time, thankfully. And it was in Spain, not in the United States. So I kind of heard about this story probably around the same time you did as well. I'm not sure. No. I might have heard about it little by little. See, now, when we were growing up, right, there was an adult table and a kid table.
Well,
so
we had that too.
I do have to say that. And what they spoke at the adult table was not relayed unless you had a cousin like I did. I mean, David, who was kind of at both. He was the older. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. He was definitely a joy, and he would have absolutely loved this.
Yes, but yes, true. David was a good guy.
Yeah, he kind of
And funny.
floated in between the two tables. He was the one that was allowed to float between the two tables, right? So the story goes, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you might have more of the fine details than I do. So getting into this story, and again, I preface this by it being in another country.
And another time.
And in another time, too. In another time period with different rules and different expectations.
It had to be in the 20s or 30s, right? Because your mother came over. No,
my mom was
she was born in 1939, right?
42.
No.
Wasn't it? 38,
wait.
39, 40, 41.
Wait a minute.
Something like that.
Okay, so my dad was born in 1937.
Yeah, Jean was 38.
Your dad is 39, and your mother... you might be right.
40?
Maybe
1940.
1941.
No, 39, because we're 30 years apart.
Okay.
In age-ish.
But your mother and father were born in the same year? Because my dad's older than your dad.
My mom was 39, my dad was 38.
And my dad's 37, and Jean is 38.
30.
Okay, this is another thing that's funny.
I don't know. We're going to go back and forth. But
this is so funny. And remind me, because we also need to do an episode about directions. How the family gets directions. Anyway, okay, so was this before your mother was born, or was it after?
You know what? I really don't know.
I don't know.
No, it's got to be after she was born, because my mom was sent to her grandmother's house to live with her because she was sick.
Okay, so
So imagine that too. We're in a period of time where you were willing to give up one of your 5, right? Mm-hmm. To the priesthood, or you were willing to give up one of your 5 to go stay with your dying grandparent or whatever it was and do whatever it is that is necessary. Right? And the only thing you could do is walk to school.
Sure. Uphill both ways.
Uphill both ways. In the snow, no less, right? So, but that's kind of the time we're talking about. So, unfortunately for her, as everybody else,
she's the one with the free time, and she could go.
Right. So she was picked.
Right.
She drew the short straw.
Good luck with that bedpan.
And had to end up living with her grandmother.
Actually, I think it was her, and I think there were 2 of them there, right?
Living with with their grandmother. I think it was only my mother.
Okay. Well, we'll have to address that again later on. Because I'm not 100% sure about that. That would be a good fact to know.
Yeah, because I think it was only her. Unfortunately, as we all have to pass away at one point, and my grandmother, or my great grandmother, my mother's grandmother, passed away. Now, where it gets sketchy for me, and this is where you might come in, is what exactly was she passed away in...
Okay. I get what you're getting at.
Because I'm not quite sure why they had to move her.
So let me pick up the story from here.
There you go.
So my understanding of the story is as follows. Your great-grandmother had gone to stay with your grandparents and, your mother and uncle and aunts for a period of time and was not well. Mm. And she was in bed at their home, not her own, which was in a different town in Spain.
Right.
And that's where she was at when the incident occurred.
Okay. So that's what happened. So she died in the care of my grandparents.
In their home.
In their home. And because it was a different jurisdiction... for whatever reason. Do you remember why?
Yes. So according to your dad, now this is all, since this isn't on the record for any legal action, we can freely admit any and all hearsay. So my understanding is when you died at that point in Spain at that time, and you weren't at home or in your natural environment or whatever, there could be questions about the death, and that could cause a delay in administering the estate because it would have to be investigated. There would be a lot of red tape or whatever, right? But that's my general understanding of what the situation was at the time. So she dies, and she died. My understanding is she died in bed.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so she dies in bed, apparently at my grandparents' house. So they see the dilemma ahead of them, right?
The bureaucratic nightmare.
The bureaucratic nightmare that is back then in Spain, right? So they decide to call a taxi. and this is even just, this is crazy. And what they did was...
Wait. I have 3 words for the listeners. National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yeah, pretty similar. So they bring her body down, and a couple of them get in the car with her. And now, I'm not even quite sure how they got the taxi driver to bring her back home and whatnot, but that's kind of a conversation that I'm guessing all the family had that I was not privy to. But so they put her in the car, grandparents are in there, and they go back to her house, take her out of the car, put her back in her own bed, and then, of course, everything else ensues, and the coroner is called and the whole 9 yards. Just the
Weekend at Bernie's.
I know. It's just...
Death takes a taxi ride.
I was floored when they had this conversation. I mean, half of us couldn't stop laughing. The other half was so serious and very much totally understanding that, yes, of course you would do this.
Of course. And why wouldn't you?
Yeah, because the red tape would be just ridiculous. And we're just being practical.
The truth is, as far as we know, she did in fact die from natural causes. And I did meet Papa Manolo. He's, in my opinion, not a murderer. So a genuinely good guy, seemed like to me. I do believe that they were just acting in a way that expedited things. Yeah. That's all. So
it's so funny because you think back at that particular...
Still, I could not believe it when they were telling that story.
Yeah, me either. And it's just very curious to me that it's just so matter of fact for them, right? And I get that. Here, that generation lived through, well, in those particular generations that we're talking about, lived through the Great War, right? World War I. Then the other pack, World War II. In this particular case, we're talking Franco, right? Mussolini in Italy and so on, right? And death to them, and I'm not going to take anything away from them. I mean, it's not as though it wasn't as important as we hold it or as sacred as it is. It's just, it was so much more...
part of life.
A part of life that we have been so privy to being separated from, right? I mean, they had brothers and sisters. I know my grandmother...
People would die, children would die all the time.
Absolutely. My grandmother had a sister who died at like 6 or 8. And they never knew what she died of either. So, which is kind of baffling for me. I mean, for someone to die and just go, no clue as to why they died. Oh, okay, well.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens.
The flu, just basic things that we have found medical treatments for back then.
No penicillin back then either. So, there you go.
Anyone who remembers the movie Clue from back in the 80s would remember that there were several ways the movie could end. And one of them was correct. So, here's what really happened.
My grandmother at that time was already very old already, and she thought about the great-granddaughter coming and having that for you.
Is she the one that when she died, they put her in the taxi?
Yeah.
Okay.
They put her where?
In a taxi.
To do what with her?
Oh, no.
Oh,
No. That was my father's mother.
Yeah.
Why'd they do that? To get her into another part of town?
Yeah.
No.
Or a weekend at Bernie's?
A Bernie. I saw him the other day.
All right, wait. I need to hear the story. I need to make sure I get it.
Okay. My father's mother always lived with us. So we were living in Castilla, and we took Grandma with us. We were all together, okay. And then we moved from Castilla, we moved to Galicia because my grandmother was saying, we are too far from our land. So my grandmother came and lived with us there. So here comes Christmas. We celebrate Christmas and all these things, blah, blah, blah. And my father went to my grandmother, his mother, was in this little bed that they had for her. And she says, Mama, here's some to rum. You want some? And my grandmother says, oh, good, yeah, I'll have some. So Papa went, gobbled the turron, and she started chewing. She was old already, okay, and so chewing. And my father said, oh, she fell asleep.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was now dead.
So the Turon killed her.
No.
The heart.
Yeah, her heart just, yeah, you don't know that.
Too old.
I need to make sure I get the story right. So, okay.
Yeah. And so, naturally...
Because you know in the book, this is going to be
Naturally.
called Death Takes a Taxi Ride. That's right.
No, it's here, I want to explain it so she understands good. All right. So they say, oh, we have to transport her to Rio Bao.
Why?
To Sada. Because that's where the nichos are for the whole family. Right?
Where the burial.
The nichos.
Yeah, I know, but if she dies here, can't you take her over there
That's
later?
what they did.
Yeah, but you need permits and all that
But you
stuff.
need permits.
And a doctor who signs the death certificate.
The death, it was
and
here.
so forth.
Nobody
So
had
her
killed
real
her.
death certificate, when you go and find it, it's actually going to say that she died in Rio Bao, but really she didn't.
No,
she died in
that's
Ghana.
right. Exactly.
Right.
So what
It's a
they
family
did,
secret.
Wait.
she wants to hear. So naturally they say, yeah. So naturally my father says, oh boy, if we now
With the dog tied to
say
the
she
bumper.
died here, it's going to be a big mess for us to be able to, a couple of days, and the papers in Spain don't move too fast. So they call the taxi driver.
You just wait.
They call a taxi driver in Sada, one that they knew, and they say, we have this problem.
I laugh because I remember the vacation that with
Chevy Chase.
the old lady.
I know, the old lady.
They
I know.
took it in the car.
And strapped her to the outside of the car.
So they call the
Just like
taxi
this one.
driver.
The taxi driver was somebody. they
Kuko was
have
tied to the bumper.
taxi in
The
Sada.
dog was-
All right, and so.
Go!
And
Go!
so
Andale!
they put Papa and the taxi driver in the front, and my madrina in the back, sitting down, and she was dead. And they took her to Sada, to Rio Bao. And in Rio Bao,
Now, to the
guy-
house where the Kirula lives in?
Yeah.
Even better. So then what happened?
And so naturally, I guess they told the guy, okay, you did your job, how much I owe you, whatever.
$1 million.
$1 million!
Keep your shit.
And
That's
so
right.
they made it believe
Keep your
No,
that-
in
God.
Spain, not Italy.
I don't know. Is it pesos?
pesetas,
Whatever.
pesetas in those times.
Said pescado.
No, I didn't. I said pesadas.
Yes, pay
And
me with
you
fish.
can put them in the book
That's
too.
what my
And
car
they
is
told
gonna
the
smell
taxi driver, you better keep your mouth shut or... You're
I know.
The next one to take a taxi ride is you in your own taxi in the trunk.
And so naturally, that way, everything went perfect.
Yeah, because they have their own doctor. And they
They're
call
like,
him
"Hey,
up and says, look,
she's dead."
my mom...
I gave her
We'll
to
drive her
Rome.
over to you. She's still in the taxi. You don't
Gave
need
her
to come
to
here.
Rome.
And so ends the tale of Death Takes a Taxi Ride. Incidentally, this is also the end of part 1 of our 2-part Halloween Everyday Macaroni podcast series of episodes. And those of you out there wondering what Tyrone is, well, Tyrone is a kind of candy or a nougat type candy made in Spain. And my grandmother, who lived in Indiana, used to make it and call it divinity. It's made from egg whites and sugar and nuts and whatever else you want to put in it. And so it tends to be a little on the chewy side. But you can get, I think, in a crunchy form too. But just so we're all clear, it was not the Tyrone that did in Madrina. No, really, I think she just died of old age. However, I can't think of a better way to go than falling asleep while eating candy in your bed. So, I hope you enjoyed the tales of Surgery Cat and Death Takes a Taxi Ride. And stay tuned for our upcoming episode, part 2 of our Everyday Macaroni Halloween podcast series. I hope you enjoyed listening and sharing a laugh or two with us. Stay tuned for more Everyday Macaroni adventures on future podcast episodes. And if you want to see some pictures of us, you can follow me on Instagram by searching @JoyAlfredBrand, #EverydayMacaroni, #TheDollarLllama, or on my Facebook page, New Cash View. Again, thanks for listening, and join us for the next episode of
Every day is